Hello, I'm CGolliver, and today we're going to look at the Alabama Code of Ethics for Educators. This document can be found at the Alabama State Department of Education's website, alsde.edu. In the search bar, type Code of Ethics, and the document should pull up. In this presentation, I have taken the document, broke it into segments on each slide. I used the document in its entirety, in its exact words, to make sure that everything was covered and that we got everything right, since this is such an important document for the educators in Alabama. So we'll start by looking at the introduction. Primary goal of every educator in the state of Alabama at all times must be to provide an environment in which all students can learn. In order to accomplish that goal, educators must value the worth and dignity of every person, must have a devotion to excellence in all matters, must actively support the pursuit of knowledge, and must fully participate in the nurturance of a democratic citizenry. To do so requires an adherence to a high ethical standard. The Alabama Educator Code of Ethics defines the professional behavior of educators in Alabama, and it serves as a guide to ethical conduct. The code protects the health, safety, and general welfare of students and educators. It outlines objective standards of conduct for professional educators and clearly defines actions of an unethical nature for which disciplinary sanctions are justified. And within this document, we will look at examples of ethical and unethical conduct. First standard is on professional conduct. An educator should demonstrate conduct that follows generally recognized professional standards. Ethical conduct examples include encouraging and supporting colleagues in the development and maintenance of high standards, respecting fellow educators and participating in the development of a professional and supportive teaching environment, and engaging in a variety of individual and collaborative learning experiences essential to developing professionally in order to promote student learning. Unethical conduct is any conduct that impairs their certificate holder's ability to function in his or her employment position, or a pattern of behavior that is detrimental to the health, welfare, discipline, or morals of students. Examples of unethical conduct listed in the document, and it says it's not limited to these, but these are just some examples. 1. Harassment of colleagues. 2. Misuse or mismanagement of tests or test materials. 3. Inappropriate language on school grounds. 4. Physical altercations. 5. Failure to provide appropriate supervision of teachers. Now, thinking about those examples of unethical conduct, can you think of an instance when one of those would apply to you or a colleague at your school? Standard 2 is trustworthiness. An educator should exemplify honesty and integrity in the course of professional practice. Ethical conduct includes, but is not limited to, the following: properly representing facts concerning an educational matter in direct or indirect public expression, advocating for fair and equitable opportunities for all children, embodying for students the characteristics of intellectual honesty, diplomacy, tact, and fairness. Unethical conduct examples are the following: falsifying, misrepresenting, omitting, or erroneously reporting any of the following: professional qualifications, criminal record, or employment history when applying for employment or certification, information submitted to federal, state, and/or other governmental agencies, information regarding the evaluation of students and/or personnel, reasons for absences or leaves, or information submitted in the course of an official inquiry or investigation. In all of those instances, it is unethical to falsify, misrepresent, omit, or erroneously report those things. Standard 3 covers unlawful acts. An educator should abide by federal, state, and local laws and statutes. Unethical conduct includes, it's not limited to, the commission or conviction of a felony or of any crime involving moral turpitude. As used herein, conviction includes a finding or verdict of guilt, regardless of whether an appeal of the conviction has been sought, or a situation where first offender treatment without adjudication of guilt pursuant to the charge was granted. Standard 4 deals with the teacher-student relationship. An educator should always maintain a professional relationship with all students, both in and outside the classroom. Examples of ethical conduct include the following: fulfilling the roles of trusted confidant, mentor, and advocate for student growth, nurturing the intellectual, physical, emotional, social, and civic potential of all students, providing an environment that does not needlessly expose students to unnecessary embarrassment, creating, supporting, and maintaining a challenging learning environment for all students. Now, these are examples of unethical conduct, and it's not limited to these examples. It's unethical to commit any act of child abuse, physical or verbal. It's unethical to commit any act of cruelty to children or any act of child endangerment. It's unethical to commit or solicit any unlawful sexual act. It's unethical to engage in harassing behavior on the basis of race, gender, national origin, religion, or disability. It's unethical to solicit, encourage, or consummate an inappropriate written, verbal, or physical relationship with a student. And it's unethical to furnish tobacco, alcohol, or illegal drugs to any student or allowing a student to consume alcohol or illegal drugs. We as teachers must act in a professional manner. These children are somebody's kids, and we should treat them as such. Standard 5 includes the alcohol, drug, and tobacco use or possession. An educator should refrain from the use of alcohol and/or tobacco during the course of professional practice and should never use illegal or unauthorized drugs. Ethical conduct includes, but is not limited to, factually representing the dangers of alcohol, tobacco, and illegal drug use and abuse to students during the course of professional practices. So we can tell students the hazards of using those items. But unethical conduct includes being under the influence of, possessing, using, or consuming illegal or unauthorized drugs. It's unethical to be on school premises or at a school-related activity involving students while documented as being under the influence of, possessing, or consuming alcoholic beverages or using tobacco. A school-related activity includes, but it's not limited to, any activity that's sponsored by a school or a school system, or any activity designed to enhance the school curriculum, such as club trips, etc., where students are involved. So no alcohol, no cigarettes, no dip on school property or at functions where you are acting as a leader for the school. Standard 6, public funds and property. An educator entrusted with public funds and property should honor that trust with a high level of honesty, accuracy, and responsibility. So examples of ethical conduct include the following: maximizing the positive effect of school funds through judicious use of said funds, spending our money wisely. Another is modeling for students and colleagues the responsible use of public property. So we need to take care of our stuff. Now, unethical conduct includes misusing public or school-related funds, failing to account for funds collected from students or parents, submitting fraudulent requests for reimbursement or expenses or for pay, commingling public and school-related funds with personal funds or checking accounts. And it's unethical to use school property without the approval of the local board of education or the governing body. If it's not your money, collect it, receipt it, turn it in order to keep yourself from being liable. Standard 7, remunerative conduct. An educator should maintain integrity with students, colleagues, parents, patrons, or businesses when accepting gifts, gratuities, favors, and additional compensation. Ethical conduct includes, but it's not limited to, the following: ensuring that institutional privileges are not used for personal gain, and ensuring that school policies or procedures are not impacted by gifts or gratuities from any person or organization. Examples of unethical conduct include soliciting students or parents of students to purchase equipment, supplies, or services from the educator, or to participate in activities that financially benefit the educator, unless approved by the local governing body. It's unethical to accept gifts from vendors or potential vendors for personal use or gain, where there appears to be a conflict of interest. And it's unethical to tutor students assigned to the educator for a fee unless it's approved by the local Board of Education. We as educators, we're already getting paid to teach students, whether it's during a regular class or, they can come early before school or stay after school, and we might call that tutoring, but they can't pay us to help them. It's already our job to help these students be successful in the classroom. Standard 8, maintenance of confidentiality. An educator should comply with state and federal laws and local school board policies relating to confidentiality of student and personnel records, standardized test material, and other information covered by confidentiality agreements. So examples of ethical conduct would be keeping in confidence information about students that's been obtained in the course of professional service, unless disclosure serves professional purposes or is required by law, and maintaining diligently the security of standardized test supplies and resources. Now, unethical examples of conduct include sharing confidential information concerning students' academic or disciplinary records, health and medical information, family status, income, and assessment testing results, unless disclosure is required or permitted by law. It's unethical to violate confidentiality agreements related to standardized testing, including copying or teaching identified test items, publishing or distributing test items or answers, discussing test items, and violating local school system or state directions for the use of test or test items. And it's unethical to violate other confidentiality agreements required by state or local policy. Standard 9, the abandonment of contract. An educator should fulfill all of the terms and obligations detailed in the contract with the local Board of Education or the educational agency for the duration of the contract. So unethical conduct includes, but it's not limited to, abandoning the contract for professional services without prior release from the contract by the employer, and refusing to perform services required by the contract. Now, when it comes to reporting, educators are required to report a breach of one or more of the standards in the Alabama Educator Code of Ethics as soon as possible, but no later than 60 days from the date the educator became aware of the alleged breach, unless the law or local procedures require reporting sooner, so no later than 60 days. Educators should be aware of their local school board policies and procedures and the chain of command for reporting unethical conduct. Complaints filed with the local or state school boards or with the State Department of Education Teacher Certification Section must be filed in writing and must include the original signature of the complainant. So it's our duties as educators, if we see one of our colleagues breach this code of ethics, we must report it. Each superintendent shall submit to the State Superintendent of Education within 10 calendar days of the decision the name and social security number of each employee holding an Alabama certificate or license who is terminated or non-renewed, resigns, or is placed on administrative leave for cause, and shall indicate the reason for such an action. Disciplinary action. We're going to define disciplinary action, or that document defines it as, the assurance of a reprimand, a warning, or the suspension revocation or denial or certificates. And here certificate refers to any teaching, service, or leadership certificate issued by the authority of the Alabama State Department of Education. Now the superintendent shall have the authority under existing legal standards, and this is the state superintendent, to revoke any certificate held by a person who's been proven guilty of immoral conduct or unbecoming or indecent behavior in Alabama or any other state or nation in accordance with Alabama Code 1623-5. Refusal to issue a certificate to an applicant whose certificate has been subject to adverse action by another state until after the adverse action has been resolved by that state. Suspend or revoke an individual certificate issued by the superintendent when a certificate or license issued by another state is subject to adverse action. And the superintendent can refuse to issue, suspend, or recall a certificate for just cause. Any of the following grounds shall also be considered cause for disciplinary action. Unethical conduct, as outlined in the Alabama Educator Code of Ethics, Standards 1 through 9, that we looked at previously. An order from a court of competent jurisdiction. Violation of any other laws or rules applicable to the professional. And any other good and sufficient cause. And they end the document with an individual whose certificate has been revoked, denied, or suspended may not be employed as an educator, a paraprofessional, an aide, or a substitute teacher during the period of his, of her, or her revocation, suspension, or denial. This has been a look at the Alabama Code of Ethics for Educators. Thank you.